what I've been beginning to notice is that a lot of people are unable to identify personal setbacks, or at least identify what a setback is by themselves. And presuming you clicked on this video, that's probably one of you. So I want to fix that because it's very important for an individual to be able to identify what is actually holding them back and not just have somebody else tell them that X habit is bad and Y habit is good because I said so. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't apply for what I call the personal phenomena, where you have some sort of reasoning or explanation to what makes you unable to do certain X, Y habit, which may be wrong, may be right. I have no clue, and I have no say. But either way, it's really, it's these 3 sets of notes that I'm going to provide you in this video that will help you identify when there's a setback and how to know if it is if it's an internal setback or an external setback. And I'll get into what that means in a second. But right now, you go first, find something to write on. I'll give you a few seconds to let you find it, and then when we're done, I'll begin starting the tutorial. Yes. Assuming you're back now and you've got your materials, I'm going to start by asking, what do you do? Now, you could probably tell that I was asking this based on me saying habits earlier, but I want you to figure out, what do you do? What habits are you currently doing in your day-to-day life? And how do they make you feel? So I have a list of mine right here, just to give you an idea. I'll put it into the camera if you can see it. But it's that right there. I actually don't think you can read that. I think that's sideways. I think that's backwards. So I apologize. But you just get a list like that, just like, okay, I do this habit, this habit, this habit, so on and so forth. And when you get this habit, well, first pause the video until you get done, then you can continue back watching. So for us that are finished now, or if you unpause the video, I'm going to ask you to do a bit of a mindset shift to ask yourself what you think is bad from your own internal opinion. So I don't want you to be like, oh, well, playing video games is bad. Oh, this is bad. I want you to internally recognize what you believe is bad, okay? And maybe you think the gym is bad, which obviously for most people we understand that it's not. But it's important to acknowledge these emotions that may arise in ways that you wouldn't think are acceptable. But after all, it is yourself that we're talking about now. So now, assuming that you have that down, so what? Now you go to your list and you see if the feeling you wrote down matched what you said to yourself. Because from seeing this perspective, it unlocks a unique ability to compare what society thinks is wrong compared to yourself. And now seeing this, you have to adjust between these two by comparing the habits individually from the categories of society and yourself by thinking, I'll show you in a second. Actually, yeah, I'll show you right now. So, right. Yeah, so like society thinks of your habits, or like what thinks are good, and then what you think for habits are good. It might be different, right? Yeah, we're hoping to see some sort of difference here. And I'm sorry for moderating in this video, but I promise it's important. So this is the last thing, by the way. After you make this chart, right, make a third section, or just like a little, just you can make like a title and a line and then list it underneath, just called desired self, which I have as well. And then you make a list of habits that internally feel important to you. And I have that right there, this little habit thing. So that'll be written down for that. So once all of this annoying writing's done, and by the way, don't be a bitch and skip out on it. Like if you just like sat here and watched the whole thing, I want you to rewatch the video, write it down, grab a pencil or some shit, and like actually do the work, please. And you can now see, with this written down, you can now see what habits you must leave, the habits you want to add, and the ones that are individually motivated versus the ones that are motivated by external sources. And the way you do this is, for example, you take the how do I do this here? Right. So you can see the ones you want to leave by seeing desired self versus the first list that you make. And then you can see the if you want to have more individualized habits, you can go down the more you think good path. But if you want more of what society thinks is good because you think they're going to guide you correctly, then go down the more society thinks good path. Anyways, so now returning to setbacks, look at the list of your current habits versus the desired self. Most likely for you, you're going to see a couple of differences between them, but mostly similar because you've actually made some progress naturally towards the direction you want to become. It's how nature of human beings works. But now you can pinpoint what habits are, or really honestly anything, as long as you use this framework, are restrictions from you being the man or woman you desire to be. Seeing this perspective of setbacks allows you to obviously allows you to have this framework in mind that even if it's not habits, but if it's like maybe you're not quite sure what food you like, right? Maybe something small like this. Or maybe you're not quite sure what diet you want to follow, right? You can use a similar framework. For instance, maybe you could have the one chart of society thinks good versus what you think's good, and maybe society thinks that chicken's good, but you think chicken nuggets are good, for example, right? And then maybe you could get a list of your foods, and you could respond with what is the innate feeling you associate with that food. Like maybe you associate happiness with the chicken nuggets, but with the chicken you associate fulfillment with because it is your desired healthy food option, right? So it's a really important framework to have in mind when using this, because it's not only used for just habits, as we just saw. It's also the ability to journal or write down things, which will help you identify new parts of your mind that are kind of back here, but like can come up and forward still. And what I mean by this is the things that you remember, but not quite. It's like the things that you don't know, but you do know, if that makes any sense. So by journaling, you allow your mind to open up and release some of this knowledge that it already has to maybe help you get a better and more deep understanding of whatever you're going on about. Even if, for example, you're just writing and you don't have any charts or anything, you don't have anything special, that's good too. Just to be able to write down, okay, this is what's not right, this is what I want to be, and I know that this is from myself and not from a peer pressure society. Because a lot of people's decisions that they make are more often peer pressured than individualized as they were in the previous generations. Obviously, we know the reasons: assumed technology, social media, so on and so forth. But still, it's important to recognize, because a lot of people don't actually recognize it in the first place, which causes them to be easily manipulated in ways where they can't see the world for themselves. Which, in my opinion, is like a form of poison. Sounds odd to say, but I think you get my point. So, before you go, I'm going to give you one quick tip on being able to break or replace the habit in this case. And it's a tip that I saw from Andrew Huberman's podcast, and it was that he would most likely agree with this, is that breaking and replacing the habit is easiest done by executing the replacement habit directly after doing the bad habit. So let's say, for instance, you are an avid cliff diver and you don't want to do it anymore because you realize how dangerous it is, for maybe that's what's really concerning you. Then the easiest thing to do would be, after cliff diving, do 20 push-ups, right? And I notice this too, is that what happens when you get the feeling to do the bad habit, your brain will also be conjointed with, is this where I do the 20 push-ups? And then you get the conscious willpower, because the mind brings it to your prefrontal cortex, and you're able to say, yes, let's do the 20 push-ups, and then you have successfully replaced your habit. Now, this could take a very long time or a very short time, depending on the individual, in many different ways, which are they're not exactly controllable from my knowledge. So that's unfortunate. However, being able to break this habit will definitely allow you to understand yourself more, and to be able to break more habits in the future and replace them based on your needs, your wants, and your goals. So, as always, we're here to help us help them. Goodbye.